Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, April 26, 2023. That appears to have been done correctly, and I don't need to check anything. Okay, so that's good news. All right. Well, hey, everybody. How's it going? Plenty to do today, plenty to catch up on today. I don't know. Everything seems to be working smoothly in the household today. It makes me a little suspicious. So I'm a little worried about what might happen. I don't know. Everything seems to have been remembered and packed correctly. Getting toward the end of the school year, though, and counting the days. I guess I'm getting to the end of my lunch and backpack making, or lunch and backpack packing career. Anyway, you'd think that would have ended a long time ago because, as I said, there's a high schooler in the house. But that doesn't make any difference. It's, still a matter of getting them out the door on time, and sometimes the easiest way to do it is to just take care of these things yourself. But okay, out the door one more time, anticipate making the bus, fingers crossed, and all right, well, ready to roll, lots of happening, as I mentioned. Greg Dworkin due to drop by today, and I don't know if I saw anything really burning up the wires this morning not on Mastodon anyway, but as Greg will tell you, the news still, for whatever reason, still happens over on the Bird site. It leaks over to Mastodon from time to time, and that's fine, and I don't know, I kind of appreciate the slower pace, but there's about 1 minute in each weekday morning when I realize, hey, it's a little quieter here, and yet I know things have been happening. All right, so let's see. Plenty, as I said, to catch up on. I don't know if we... Well, okay. A few things put back together for today's program. Oh, okay, Greg already reminded me. Is today the day that they have set for the vote in the House on the debt ceiling bill? And I think the bill is still maybe a little bit in flux, too. I did see people talking this morning about last-minute changes that groups of 1, 2, 5 members of the House are able to demand because of the razor-thin margins that they've got on this thing. And so various weirdos and lunatics and people disguising themselves as moderates or what have you, asking for various giveaways in the debt ceiling bill, because what better time to ask for giveaways than when you realize that you'll be facing crushing, what you keep calling crushing debt in the future. Why not hand out more at the last minute? All right. Well, Greg says he's got that one covered, and they have fixed their bill and settled things. I saw that, I guess maybe the last activity that I saw discussed was Matt Gaetz making certain demands, including moving the work requirements for I don't know what, which social safety net programs, probably all of them, that were going to be imposed up from 2005 up to 2004, so they hurry up and ruin things already. And then there was a Midwestern group of members looking to save some tax credits for farmers that, of course, let me have some extra money and let my people have some extra money and then crush everybody else. So, okay, they got what they wanted because they need every single vote they can get. And Kevin McCarthy is quite adept at giving away the store. He doesn't really care what happens here. So I guess he was happy to go ahead and move that forward. All right. Plenty of other things to catch up on, of course. Let's see. Yes, it's National Pretzel Day. I did put that in today's morning post. Like, even last night I realized it's not that nothing's happening. It's that it's consolidated into just 2 or 3 stories. They branch off in 18 different directions, each one of these stories. But, I don't know. They've chosen to focus themselves, I guess, this morning. So I'll let you know that it's National Pretzel Day. I don't know about any pretzel giveaways or anything like that. Are there any national pretzel chains with retail outlets? I guess Auntie Anne's Pretzels, something like that. Maybe they're in a mall near you. Go see if they're giving away pretzels, or even if they even know it's National Pretzel Day. It's not widely celebrated, but I don't want to insult anybody or, leave anybody out. There's a number of every day is a national day. There's usually 6 or 7 of them. So there's National Everything Days out there today. I think it's maybe National Administrative Assistance Day as well. So give them a pretzel, I guess, if they like that sort of thing, or if they're, if they have a gluten problem, maybe you want to look elsewhere. I don't know. You need National Gluten-Free Pretzels for your Administrative Assistant Day, and that should be one of its own. Greg Dworkin is here. It's Greg Dworkin Day. We know that much, but every day is Greg Dworkin Day, so long as it's Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Good morning, Greg. How you doing?
Good morning. So today is National Not So Great Replacement Day because, the Great Replacement Theory was replaced by Brian Kilmeade that I don't know if anybody watched. And then for the next couple of days, Hannity's taken the 8 o'clock slot for Fox.
Wow.
I don't know if that's going to be permanent, semi-permanent. They have to figure it out. But Not So Great Replacement, I think, is a good description of what's going on there.
Yeah, pretty good.
But I'm not going to start with that. I am going to talk about that, but I'm not going to start with that. I want to talk about what you were talking about, which is Jake Sherman
about it 'cause
writing
you told me.
a very late night, early morning for the House.
All right.
As Speaker McCarthy tries to squeeze his debt limit bill through the chamber. Now, remember, for the purposes of this discussion and for the purposes of running the government, this is a debt limit bill.
Mm-hmm.
It essentially says, we'll raise the debt limit if you do the following things along with it. And then the following things include a whole bunch of crap.
Okay.
And they include him caving to the Iowa legislatures for ethanol tax breaks.
Is that what it was?
And they
ethanol.
include
Okay.
caving to George Santos and Matt Gaetz for work requirements, I think, for Medicaid.
Can I just say what a lot of nerve it takes for those two in particular, but George Santos, work requirements imposed by George Santos, he hasn't worked a day in his life.
That would be also like including in the bill, and you're not supposed to lie about your resume.
Oh, yeah, right. Why not throw that in there as well?
But see, the point there is that the way this whole thing is structured, well, here's Sherman saying, McCarthy said he wasn't going to change the bill. He used the Rules Committee to do just that. It was necessary to get the votes.
Yeah, all right.
Manaraju says after GOP leaders said they wouldn't change debt limit bill, House Rules Committee did just that overnight, restoring ethanol tax breaks demanded by Iowa members and speeding up new work rules for Medicaid sought by Matt Gaetz. Could be enough to ease the bill's passage today, and it probably would be. But our friend Ringwis, who is a parliamentarian expert for the House on Twitter, points this out, and that is to say that this is a debt limit bill.
Yes.
Okay. Why is that important? Because Section 303 of the Congressional Budget Act, which prohibits consideration of legislation providing a change in the public debt to become effective during a fiscal year until the budget resolution for that year has been agreed to.
Oh. Because I think that has not happened.
It hasn't.
Sure it
but
hasn't.
How do you get around that? Those that have the gavel make the rules. You do a waiver.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Right? And then you get past that. However, our friend Ringwis points out a good rule of thumb. If you need to waive points of order, it's not regular order.
That is true, too.
So all of the, we've talked about this for years on this show. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to this, every politician of both parties, every party, is a lying weasel when they say they want regular order. They only want regular order if they can get what they want through regular order. And if they can't, then they're okay with suspending regular order. Yeah. Now, this particular group of Republicans has been really loud about saying how important it is to return to regular order, have single-issue bills, don't use amendments, regular order, yada, yada. And now they're all perfectly happy to waive it because it's the only way they can get this through.
Yeah, that's true. And not only are they waiving that rule, but I mean, they hang the whole thing, Christmas tree bill. It's a debt limit bill. All you have to do is say what the new debt limit is going to be. And they not only, they add a bunch of crap, but they added a bunch of crap not by taking it to committee and saying, what do you guys think? Should we add this crap? But taking it to the rules committee and saying, can you write a special rule that says that when we start consideration, it's deemed to say this, that, and the other thing. It doesn't say those things, but could we pretend it does?
Right. And then it's deemed to pass the debt limit, and then it's deemed to not be amendable, and then it's deemed to say that despite the fact that you're supposed to pass a budget first, we didn't, and it's deemed to be okay. I mean, there's a whole bunch of deeming in there.
Yeah.
It's really a demon bill. And the point of all of this is that the entire structure of the bill in the beginning was meant to be a simple messaging bill. These are the sort of things Republicans want. This gives Kevin McCarthy the ability to go to Biden and say, look, my entire conference, my Republican Party, the majority party, says this is what we want, and we passed this, and so I can tell you this is what we want. Now let's sit down and negotiate. However, the way he got here, by caving to everything, including not doing it through regular order, not passing a budget, caving at the last minute to Iowa and Gates and Santos. Gates and Santos did this together. Doing all of that simply makes him look just as weak as when he won the speakership. I won the speakership, Kevin McCarthy says. Yeah, look how you did it. You look like a jerk. I passed this messaging bill. Yeah, but look how you did it. You look like a weak jerk. And that's going to be the end of it when it passes today. And then he's going to turn to Biden, and Biden's going to say, who the hell are you?
Weak jerk. Yeah. Well, all right. I mean,
so I just thought I would set that up. That to me is what's happening here.
I think you're right. That's well thought out. Lucid objection overruled.
Now, the question is, what does Biden do about it? Because like it or not, 4-vote majority or not, messaging bill or not, caving or not, looking like an idiot or not, being an idiot or not,
all those things are
Kevin McCarthy is still the speaker, and Republicans still have the majority votes in the House. So what does Biden
claim? I don't know.
And my answer is that's not really the headline. People want to make that the headline. What will Biden do? It's not that important.
Why?
Now, having the debt limit not expire or running out of money or whatever is important. But I think that Biden will do something. I don't know what it is. Maybe he'll mint a platinum coin. Maybe he'll just tell you all to Argo, yourself. I don't know. But maybe he should, because the whole debt limit is stupid. And I'm not sure where in the White House rules it says that Biden has to pay attention to this. Why doesn't he just ignore it and go do what he needs to do? What are they going to do about it?
I'm not sure. I imagine they'll sue.
Well, you can't do that. That's not the way things has ever worked. Well, fine. But you have a bunch of insurrectionists here who are really not worth negotiating with. You don't negotiate with terrorists.
There's that.
Print the damn platinum coin.
Okay. It's one way around it. Various other legal mechanisms they might resort to. But, yeah, interesting that, of course, the Republicans could have done a lot to clarify the issue and make it a very clear choice between A or B, but instead it's A and A-001, subsection B, part 2, with Medicare work requirements. Oh, my God, whatever. Yeah, sure. Okay, well, it's a little bit cluttered. And work requirements required by George Santos. Wow.
So Liam Donovan, who is a Republican political hack, term of affection.
Oh.
Steve Shale uses that all the time. Who is relatively honest about what's going on, which is why I like to read him, has a piece about the end game. And he says, what could the end game look like? Short of the unlikely and messy capitulation of one side, resolution of the current impasse will require a strategically ambiguous and plausibly deniable connection between the debt limit increase on the one hand, which is going to happen, and a budget deal on the other. It's fairly simple to imagine the terms of a deal both sides could live with in aggregate, but Biden can't be seen as having paid a ransom, and the Republicans can't be seen as caving to Biden on a clean increase. So they have to negotiate on the budget, and Biden has said that. I'm not negotiating on the debt limit, but I'll negotiate on the budget. So then they can start negotiating on the budget, and then McCarthy can say, look, we brought him to the table. Now let's pass the debt limit and negotiate on the budget. I mean, that's the way it could end anytime they want. And neither one really, has to say, okay, the other side caved.
Well, I guess they ought to hurry up and get to it.
You'd think, but, what was the old saying? Watching the gallows get set up is a really good way to focus the mind, or something along those lines.
Oh, maybe that's what the guy at January 6th was thinking.
Well, they got to wait to the end. You got to wait to the last minute in order to do that. So Liam Donovan writes, while it may seem like semantics, the distinction between these two tracks, debt limit versus spending budget, is the best way to square the circle, providing a permission structure for Biden to engage and both sides to save face. Now, the House can't do a discharge petition, he says, because it's a cumbersome process. It would have to be done in advance, and it's too late.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
and besides, they don't have the votes.
Well,
and
yeah,
besides, it hardly ever works.
It's a troublesome I guess they could
Why don't the
deem it
Democrats
to have
just
worked.
force it and make the moderates in the Republican Party vote with them? Because there aren't any moderates in the Republican Party.
That's true.
Stop thinking that way. There are no moderates. There are non-insurrectionists and insurrectionists, but they're all conservatives.
No, I mean, if the issue here is why didn't they write their own bill and start a discharge petition and get it done that way? Because no Republicans would sign it, and you don't have enough for a majority, and that's it.
Is there anything McConnell can do? Well, he's not like in full health, and he's not eager to jump back into the fray, says Liam Donovan. After a rocky experience during the last debt limit standoff in 2021, one that President Trump repeatedly seized on and is spat with the old crow. The Republican leader will be instrumental in blessing whatever Republicans will abide in the Senate, but his direct involvement, not likely.
Okay.
Right? Can Republicans and even some Wall Street analysts be right when they say that the Treasury should prioritize the payments in the event of a debt ceiling breach in order to avoid the most painful elements of a default scenario? Well, sure, but that doesn't mean that we're going to get to that point. And those are brutal choices anyway. Can Biden act unilaterally? That's the $64,000 question, and a willingness to consider such options, or the perception there, may be what buttresses their firm no negotiation stance. There are various theories of how a president could elide the debt limit, the minting of $1 trillion coin, or invoking the primacy of the public debt clause under the 14th Amendment. Yes. The Congressional Research Service looks at the lingering legal questions around these approaches, but perhaps more than the legal uncertainty, the viability of executive action may rest on how markets would react. So they could buy time, but what it would do, it was probably, according to the markets, shorten the time that things look really bad and force negotiations. So he talks about best case scenario and worst case scenario. Of course, to him, the best case scenario is that McCarthy passes this bill and then says, okay, I won. Now let's negotiate on the budget and ignore the debt and, then pass the debt. So in other words, McCarthy saves face, allowing him to get this done. But Liam Donovan is a Republican. So my best case scenario is that McCarthy looks like a complete fool and the bill fails. That's not going to happen, but that would be my best case, because I like seeing McCarthy exposed as the little man he is.
Okay.
But, I'm not Liam Donovan. So and then he ends by saying, so are we doomed? No. The problem with most of the debt limit takes is that they fall into one of two camps. Either they begin with the premise default is unthinkable, or they determine that default is inevitable and there's nothing we can do. Neither is true. It's a negotiation, and generally they figure out something in the end.
Yeah, I don't know that means neither is true.
Well, he talked about, that they passed this. McCarthy says, I've done the bill.
Yeah.
And now I can negotiate with Biden on the budget, which he said he was willing to do, and I am now willing to do now that I passed this bill. Oh, yeah, that debt limit thing, yeah, we'll raise it as long as we're having fruitful negotiations. That's how you do it, and that's probably what's going to happen.
Okay. I mean, I guess so. I don't know what to and I don't know what's left for negotiation either. That didn't get hung.
Well, it's a McCarthy cave, but you have to make it look like it's not a McCarthy cave.
All
Saving
right.
face, and again, somebody, I can't remember. I had this and maybe I even said it on Monday, but the smartest thing that somebody had said is that politics is a game of status. Everything about politics is status.
Okay.
And so that's why all of the Florida delegation doesn't want to endorse DeSantis.
Oh.
When he disrespects them, by not talking to them and asking for their vote. They're reading this as, well, you think I'm low status, you don't have to talk to me. They hate that.
I see.
And so they're going to do Trump because Trump plays up to them. Trump sucks up to them. Trump's a con man. He knows the game. DeSantis doesn't. So that's true here. Everything is about McCarthy saving face, because if you don't allow him to save face, he loses status, and politicians hate losing status. Look at Lindsey Graham and the depths he'll plunge to in order to maintain his definition of status. It's all about status.
Okay.
It's never about policy.
I don't know what his status is, but
it's rarely about politics, except to the extent that you want to get reelected. But day-to-day life in the House and the Senate is all about status.
I think that's largely true for these guys. People have compared it to high school or even middle school. And
yes, and that's why.
That's the reason. All right.
Yeah, you want to be with the cool kids, and you want to be a nerd, or you have your group, you have your faction. But don't forget, nerds are always behind the class president and the cool kids.
Yeah, the line up behind them in the pecking order.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they should make some demands on the debt ceiling. This rarely happens in student government, but
what happens is, generally what happens in student government is that these things don't occur. Except what happens when the greasers start making trouble and they demand things. And start fights and threaten to beat you up if you don't, increase the budget for school, football parties, whatever.
I don't know that they would go to them.
And basically, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the leader of the greasers.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Well, that's odd. I never thought that the kids could organize and assault the school. And
no, they could assault other people in their class.
They should have done that, though. Should break in and stop the student government from meeting and threaten to beat everybody up.
Yeah, you got to remember how old I am. I mean, I go back to, late 60s, early 70s, where the football team would organize to beat up the hippies.
Yes.
Over the Vietnam War.
And then...
I mean, it was a thing.
They would go to Vietnam, and then that was a... Yeah. All right, well, I changed their minds about it.
And then they went and we didn't.
Yeah. But you got beat up while you were here.
Because we went to college.
Yeah.
And we had deferments. And, that's the way it works.
Yes.
So, in the end,
and then they raised the price of college.
The ones who got the jobs.
Right, that's true. Okay. Well, that is, a good background explanation.
So, I'm just saying that, when you step back and say, how can we grease the wheels to make this negotiation happen? The answer is usually status. If you do it that way, you won't make a tremendously bad mistake. You may need to do other sweeteners, but don't leave that part out of it.
Yes.
Saving faces,
we have
hugely enormous.
It's true. I mean, if you really need I think the most extreme example maybe goes back to if you remember the alleged snub of Newt Gingrich, the Air Force One snub during the Clinton presidency. I won't invite Newt Gingrich on Air Force One to go. Where the hell were they going? I don't even know.
Or if he did, he had to sit in the back or whatever it was.
And then he was gonna shut down the government over it, and he did so. And even the New York tabloids recognized that as beneath him, which is incredible. All right, well that's another history lesson for you now at this stage of the game. That's like 30 years old.
Right. Well, let's talk a little bit about politics between now and the break, and then we'll talk about Tucker Carlson afterwards, because I think that's still an important story.
If you like, yes.
But CBS News had a poll yesterday. CBS News poll finds Democrats meet Biden re-election bid with acceptance more than excitement.
Okay.
I accept this story. I'm not excited about it. Ahead of this re-election announcement, Democrats said they like and approve of Biden. Well, that's kind of important.
Yeah,
they said they would greet that announcement with more acceptance and excitement. Who cares? A vote's a vote. And about as much nervousness as confidence. Well, duh, we're Democrats.
Yes, well, that's
here's the rationale. The Democrats who want Biden to run again think his job performance warrants it, and echoing their 2020 calculus, say he can beat Republicans again in 24. But nearly half of Democrats don't want him to run, and they overwhelmingly cite his age as a reason. It's not because they think he'd lose. They simply say it's time for someone new. If you ask younger people, they will say that. And then the CBS News poll goes on to say, that said, This is important. Even most Democrats who say he shouldn't run would still consider supporting him in the primaries.
All right.
Look, I would prefer somebody younger. I would prefer being younger.
Hey, that's a
I
thought.
bet
I hadn't
Biden
given that
feels
any.
the same way. But you know what? It is what it is. Suck it up.
Okay. I mean,
now, people get mad. I remember 2016 very well. People really got mad when you said, suck it up and stop complaining about Bernie. Just vote for Hillary. How dare you tell us that? You can't tell us what to do. Well, that's how you get Trump. Right? I said the same thing when Ralph Nader was running. I don't really care what he represents. I don't care what Marianne Williamson represents.
What?
Sure, you have the right to vote whoever you want to. Just understand, if you're not voting for the Democratic candidate, you're voting for Trump to win and bring all the malignance that goes with him. That's your binary choice. And Biden knows it, and that's why he's running.
yeah. All right, and I guess that's why people are accepting of his.
Well, they have to get through all the rationales first. Why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? I would have done it this way.
Yeah.
They
Just
should
get
do
someone
this
younger.
instead. How could
Who?
you tell us
I
what?
don't
Yeah,
know.
fine.
Someone.
Just get it out of your system.
Okay. Now's the time, I guess. I don't know. Write little op-eds about how we want some fresh faces.
Yeah, and
that
at the
was
same
a new
time,
idea.
for the good of the country, Biden should resign.
What? Where would that one come from?
Well, it comes from, that's what they said about Obama.
Oh, really?
Don't you remember?
I don't know. Do I remember that? I
Doug
probably
Shane and
ignored
Pat,
that at the time.
what's his name, Pat Cadell,
Oh,
saying he
okay.
really needs to be a one-term president, so for the sake of unity, he should resign.
Yes. Right. Okay, yeah.
And then he went on to win a second term. And
I
of course,
mostly ignored that.
they looked just as dumb then as they do now in retrospect for saying that.
Yes. But in retrospect, everybody should have resigned, including them, and then everything would be fine. I don't know. That's unusual. I mean, they did do that. I mostly put that aside. I probably forgot about it right then and there.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Net Roots Radio. What the hell have we been talking about? Oh, yes,
Well,
right.
we were talking
Face
about
saving.
Biden's reelection.
And-
but,
oh, yeah, that
you know,
one.
I figure we should do some lightning round stuff just to make sure we don't forget to mention it.
Yeah.
There's the Ari Melber breaking the story about the prosecutor for the United States Department of Justice, Jack Smith, asking for tapes from the producer who's suing Tucker Carlson and Fox News.
Uh-huh.
And those tapes have Ted Cruz detailing how he would like to disrupt January 6th, 4 days before it happened.
January 2nd, then.
Basically, what we
thereabouts.
have to do is, in order to get what we need, we have to disrupt January 6th and make sure that some sort of commission actually appoints the next president of the United States, not this,
Okay.
you know, in other words, you know, yeah, I don't accept that Biden's president, and I'll do anything in my power to try to disrupt it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not news, Ted Cruz says, because I've said all of this publicly before, but I think it's still news.
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing Kevin Cruz points out, sort of amazing, we now have detailed stories about the apparent corruption of two Supreme Court justices, neither of which is Brett Kavanaugh. And that comes from Neil Gorsuch admitting that some law firm that practices in front of him bought property of his.
Yes.
for
manner of speaking.
maybe not market prices. It's not clear. But whatever it is, he didn't disclose it.
Yeah, no, it seems like it was, I think market price, the price was lowered. So I guess that's got to be reasonably close to market price, although it was on the market for 2 years. But anyway, yeah, it was, it's more about the failure to disclose than anything else. And I think that all by itself, it wouldn't even be such a huge problem, except for the fact that Clarence Thomas is magnifying everyone's problems. To the extent you want to keep your small problems small, you're going to need to do your part to help get rid of Clarence Thomas. But he won't
Right.
do
Lisa
that.
Rubin, lawyer, is watching the Trump trial, which is a civil trial with E. Jean Carroll. Remember, he's not going to jail for this. It's just a question of whether or not he has to admit guilt.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
they picked the
He
jury,
might.
and they started the trial yesterday, and she was covering it. And she writes, final thought for tonight. Witnessing E. Jean Carroll turn around in her seat at plaintiff's table to watch Trump lawyer Joe Tacopina attack her character was searing. However this case turns out, I don't think I'll ever forget that sight. So basically, there's only one thing on trial, and that's E. Jean Carroll from a practical point of view. You hate that to be the case because Trump is the accused, but the jury has to decide whether E. Jean Carroll is credible or not. That's just
Okay.
the way it works.
No, she's got a first initial and a second name and everything. That's very
Right. So, I'm not saying she'll
staid
lose. I'm just
and,
saying that's the situation.
all right.
And
I believe
terrible
people
when
with
that's
first
the
initials.
case, but in fact, that's from a practical point of view the case.
Okay.
Speaking of trials, another practical point of view is that finally, after 61, 62 days, depending upon how you count it, the Proud Boy trial goes to the jury. As of this morning at 9 o'clock, the jury has started to deliberate. So no more delays on the part of the defendants. No more, I think this is a mistrial every 15 minutes. No more sidebars.
They might keep
No
saying
more,
it.
you have to argue with us, judge, about how you instruct the jury, and the judge saying, actually, no, I'm the judge. I'll decide how I instruct the jury. Thank you very much.
There's
And
still
if you feel like
opportunities.
it was funny at the end, there were like, I think 8 defendants and multiple lawyers, and he got tired of them all. And he said, here's how it's going to work. If you think I'm doing something wrong, email me.
Okay.
Email me. Don't take up the court's time with it right now. I'm done, right? You made your arguments. I already told you what I'm doing. You don't like it? Email me.
Huh. I guess you could do that.
Yeah.
got a gavel.
Give them our email, Email
I'd like
me.
to see what those
Email me at
objections
KROX
are.
at
Sure.
dailycoast.com, whatever.
That'd be a thing to do. Yeah, I guess there's.
And I'll read it when I see it.
Disruptions. Anytime, like if there's any jury questions, they can argue and fight and delay about that. But I don't know how many questions there are going to be. Like, what was
don't
your
know.
name again? All right, yeah, you're guilty.
Yeah. Well,
the
so
jury
then the jury was instructed to do jury things,
Yeah, sure. It's a
You
jury
guys
rigging.
decide. Don't ask me, and don't tell me about what you're doing. I don't want to know preliminary votes, says the judge. I don't want to know whether you got 9 or you need 1 holdout. I don't want to know about any of that. Just tell me when you're done, and don't tell me what the verdict is until you tell me that you're done, and then we'll read it in court, and that's how it's going to work. And so he's been running a pretty tight
we'll
case.
See if that works.
And, it's been 61 days of presentation of evidence by both sides. Hopefully it'll be, 6 hours of deliberation, and then we'll find out what the hell's going on.
Yes, it might not need that long, but you're going to want the lunch. Maybe you can get a dinner
1:30
out
to
of it if you
2:30
think it
lunch
can be
every
done.
day.
So, right, true.
Even those are the rules.
Yeah. So, all right,
How do I
get
know
your
this?
per
I'm
diem.
following Brandy Buckman's, coverage of the trial, and that's how I know all of this, because she knows all of this.
All right. Well, I like interesting. A good sign when the group decides on the late lunch, 1:30 to 2:30. That's I don't know. You could probably come up with an analysis that means something that way, as opposed to the 12 to 1 people. All right. I don't know. That's interesting. All right, we'll wait for that, and hopefully it doesn't take very long. I mean, the evidence is pretty overwhelming, and the Proud Boys are abrasive, annoying clients, and I'm hopeful that the jury has had their fill of them and wants to go home. So good. All right. Anything else? Nothing else? All right, that's it.
That's it. So as far as the Tucker Carlson stuff goes, which I think is still interesting,
Okay.
There's a
why not?
report.
Show me how.
Well, for example, one of the most interesting parties, the pleased party, if you will, that Tucker Carlson has banished from the air is the Defense Department.
The Defense Department?
They are sick and tired of him taking Russia's side and supporting Russia. And they're thrilled that the largest voice for Ukraine should lose, Russia should win has been taken off the air.
That must be a relief. Okay, that's good. RT wants to hire him, or has said so anyway. I don't know whether they're really.
Yeah, exactly right.
Have money
so it just gives you an idea of where this is.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Other things that are of interest. Tucker was a very important voice in the, as Rachel Maddow laid out well on Monday, although I've said this before that show, that Carlson could be compared to Father Coughlin back in the 40s. Very racist, large right-wing presence, which was toxic and eventually, ended.
Yes.
And what Rachel did is trace the evolution of that, the line, if you will, between Father Coughlin and then Rush Limbaugh and then Bill O'Reilly and then Tucker Carlson, but each one diminished compared to the one before them. Tucker Carlson didn't have the same reach that O'Reilly did. O'Reilly didn't have the same reach that Limbaugh did. And Limbaugh didn't have the same reach as Coughlin did. So if you're an optimist, you can look at this trend and say, it's getting better.
I guess.
For the next 100 years.
Right. So it's going to take a while until they're talking to nobody. But maybe media fragmentation will help accelerate that.
Right. And so the other things that are pointed out is what happened to Glenn Beck after he got thrown off of Fox? What happened to Bill Riley?
Yeah.
What happened to Megyn Kelly? And why do you think that won't happen to Tucker Carlson? Of course, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But the point is, it's not automatic that this so-called talented voice is going to be a force forever. Maybe not.
True. I mean, although...
what happened to Joe McCarthy after he was broken?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see whether it happens this way. I hope it does. He's got a little bit of practice.
I'm just saying, don't predict what you don't know.
Oh, why not? What else are we going to do? There's like an hour
it would be irresponsible not to speculate, but we don't know what's going to happen to him. Maybe he'll turn out to be nothing.
Maybe he'll become a nice guy.
I have to say, all the TikToks and all the other funny videos about, I can't believe Tucker's off the air. How will my father know who to hate? Are pretty funny.
Well, the kids are okay. They understand.
Yeah, the kids are great, and they totally understand what's going on here. And so, it's the older folks. And again, Hannity is not a replacement for Carlson. They don't do the same toxic white nationalism.
No.
Hannity's basic vanilla-flavored right-wing Republican, but, who wouldn't be out of place 10 years ago. Tucker Carlson was going for conservative white Christian nationalism. And by the way, some of the speculation that I've seen online about why he had to go has to do with a Friday night speech he gave to Heritage Foundation, where he got very messianic and talked about Christian nationalism in a way that made Rupert Murdoch very uncomfortable, because that's one of the reasons why he broke off with his latest, squeeze.
Is that right?
Yeah, because she was like all white Christian nationalism too, and thought Tucker Carlson was the voice of God, and it just scared the bejeebers out of him.
Who was that? I don't know who was dating.
I don't care. But the point is, there were reasons that it happened Friday, and then they didn't let him know till Monday, and he wasn't expecting it. And I don't know if that's correct, but I do think it's correct that everybody reporting that Carlson did not see this coming.
Well, he certainly didn't see it coming on Friday at the end of his show when he said, "We'll see you Monday."
Yeah. So all the jokes about I did not see this Nazi being fired, true. He didn't see it coming.
I want to note for the record that evil billionaire Rupert Murdoch had the opportunity to put him back on the air on Monday, sitting over a trap door into an alligator pit, and did not do it.
He had the opportunity to give Tucker Carlson a goodbye hour.
Yes.
He didn't.
That's true, too. But I mean, I
Took it
would
away
like
from
to have
him.
seen the trapdoor thing go
And
on.
embarrassed him. And it was pretty significant.
He did, and all right, so that's good. I guess Tucker is somewhat adept at the new media landscape in that he,
Well, he's
got fired
independently
from
wealthy,
something,
and he's got a lot of money,
there's that.
so he can do a
That's
lot
true.
of things. But
That's
that
the
doesn't mean
substitute
that you
for
have the
being
same kind of
adept.
reach.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, I believe, as we were pointing out, this is like his third firing from a major network. So one, you could say, well, he does tend to land another job, but he's running out of networks.
Caller, and he did this, and he did that.
And the Daily Caller
point
is a
are his
personal
70-year-old white Christian male audience going to follow him to wherever he goes next?
Yeah, are they going to sign up for TikTok? Are they going to be watching a podcast for him? Yeah, maybe not. Okay, so that's good. I mean, their televisions turn on, and whatever happens on Fox, and sometimes that's the only channel that they know, or they lost the remote a long time ago anyway. So whatever Fox puts on is what they get. That might be enough. There'll be, a core that he brings with him. That Daily Caller experiment was a bridge between firings for him, I think. And I guess he could end up going back. I guess he probably goes there in the morning just to have a place to go to.
But that's an interesting way to think about it. Fox News is for the people who literally have forgotten how to change the channel.
Yeah. That's the demographic. I mean, they'll fight. If they do have their remote, they'll fight with you over it. That's true. They want it. But anyway.
That was true about my late father-in-law. He forgot how to change the channel sometimes when he had to show him.
Well, yes, that's why
he grew
a
up
lot
in the
of
era
people,
of rabbit-eared TV.
Yeah, well, when you run into those, and a lot of people do this. You can program the cable boxes to lock out channels, and there's a couple of days where the parents get angry, but then they find something else, I guess, and I don't know. I guess they get angry about the whatever else they're watching. All right, well.
So
hopefully he doesn't land on his feet.
Tucker stories. This one is from Bernie Belvedere from Mark Digital. The Tucker Files. This was written on April 12th. What Tucker believes in the privacy of his own home doesn't really matter, and simply makes the point that don't argue about what you read and what you didn't read and what you heard and what he says. The point is he doesn't believe any of it, and he's a liar.
Yes, I guess so. That's what the difficulty was in reading his Wikipedia profile yesterday. I was checking some, basic facts about him, and it caught my eye that his Wikipedia profile still has him as, a big Trump backer, which maybe he actually is. It's just that the story for the last 2 weeks was, guess what? We found out he's really not. Well, I don't know. Did we find out he's really not? Or do we find out that he's saying or was at some point saying he wasn't?
So this is the political story I was referencing before. Good riddance. Pentagon officials cheer Tucker Carlson's ouster. The former Fox host ridiculed top DOD leaders over Biden-era policies.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So they and national security people are amongst the happiest to see him go. Margaret Sullivan, writing in The Guardian, Tucker Carlson was Fox News' biggest star. Then he became its biggest liability. And again, the Abby Goodman, she's the producer that's suing him, tapes that she has provided are going to make it a continuing story. And this one is Andrew Prokop in Vox, not Fox, but Vox.
Right.
VOX. Tucker Carlson was doing something different and darker than most Fox hosts. That's why I think it's such an important story. The Father Coughlin stuff isn't just a throwaway. Mm-hmm. He was really going down a very dark hole, and that's why it's so important that he's ousted.
He was, and he was obvious in doing it that way. And that I guess is it's hard to describe, but there was a very visible difference between, say, him and Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity just sort of approaching from the, I'm conservative, so I'm going to misunderstand this topic. Tucker Carlson was the kind of guy who would glare and raise an eyebrow into the camera and explain that it was really, socialist pedophiles that were doing it. Well,
Yeah, I can't really believe that they're calling this an insurrection when in fact it was Antifa. And I'm astounded that people don't understand this.
Right.
It's so simple.
Hannity at least was still in the territory of, well, you shouldn't, smear feces on things, but.
Yeah. Exactly.
But he would concede it was bad.
Prokop said, it might sound odd to claim that a TV host losing his program is seismic news for American politics, but with Carlson's exit from Fox News, that claim is justified. Like the rest of his Fox colleagues, Carlson's main job was winning eyeballs, and he was good at that.
Yeah.
But he was also engaged in a different and more ambitious project from, say, Hannity. Rather than just cheerleading for Trump or the Republican Party or Fox News, Carlson was articulating an ideology. Some call it conservative populism, national conservatism, white nationalism. It's an ideology that panders to many Americans' bigoted and xenophobic impulses, their resentments and grievances. It welcomes in voices denounced by others as racist, delights in mocking woke liberals, promotes conspiracy theories, admires foreign leaders denounced by others as authoritarians. Viktor Orban's probably upset too.
Yeah, well,
as well as
might be his
that,
favorite program.
Tucker Carlson's off the air. It denounces elites, the traditional establishment of both parties, and the long-held commitment of U.S. foreign policy. You know, one of the things about Twitter is that they took away the blue check meaning, so anybody can put up a fake account. Somebody had a fake Tucker Carlson account, which was really very funny.
Who's Tucker Carlson?
Yeah, it said Tucker Carlson with a blue check, and it said, Harvard graduate, Aspen Institute attendee, she, her.
Okay, interesting.
It was really very funny because you didn't notice it right away. Mm-hmm. Then you go, look, and this is like it represents everything. Tucker Carlson is an elitist. The whole concept of him running against elites,
is
insane.
Been going on for a long time.
He's a trust fund baby who went to the most elite schools.
It's awfully difficult to convince me that some person named Tucker Carlson would be a genuine anti-elite.
So. Now, he hasn't worn the bow tie for a while, but he's a bow tie guy.
Yes. So does Prokop, did he think that, remind me, did he say that he did or didn't think that Carlson genuinely believed any of this? Or
that was Bernie Belvedere who said that.
All right.
What Prokop is saying, he doesn't get into whether Carlson believed it or not.
I'm curious.
I'm of the school, and I suspect Prokop is also of the school, that it doesn't matter whether or not you actually believe things that you say about being a Nazi. If you say them,
for the
you're
audience.
a Nazi.
Yeah, I guess it just it came up as a question in my mind just because when he was saying that he was promoting a certain ideology, and I do sometimes wonder whether it was going on in his head was he ever saying this is my plan, or was he ever saying I'm just curious what it can I say literally
racism,
anything?
You're a racist.
I'm not excusing him in any sense. I'm just sort of curious what was his primary driver? Trying to impose or encourage and grow an ideology, or was he like, I wonder if I can get away with saying this, or I just hate this person and I'm going to say the worst thing I can think of without getting fired about this person?
Thesis on this. He says Carlson was trying to depose the Republican Party's old elites and those who wouldn't get with his program and anoint new ones. He wanted to create litmus tests for what it meant to be a conservative. That's why he pushed Ron DeSantis to disavow support for Ukraine. Okay. Why he raked Ted Cruz over the coals for calling January 6th a violent terrorist attack, which Cruz did right after, even though Cruz was trying to set it up.
Yes, right.
Like-minded thinkers on the right loved it. They saw in their tributes after news of Carlson's departure from Fox broke, Tucker Carlson remade television and remade the political right salute. Yoram Hazony, a writer trying to promote national conservatism, tweeted, Tucker's the most courageous person in American media, said J.D. Vance. Tucker's the most important, most influential, most courageous voice in the entire country, and there's no close second, said Sean Davis, co-founder of the conservative website The Federalist.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you look at the people who are like sucking up to Carlson, it's like, oh my God, this is a rogues gallery of really bad people.
It's some of the worst.
Right? Yeah, so to some extent, Carlson's ideological project has already succeeded in reshaping the right, and it'll continue to do so, but his exit could be a serious blow to that project. He's lost his platform. He's lost access to a giant audience, who I would add don't know how to change the channel. And while liberals will likely loathe whatever and whoever fills his shoes, that's just Hannity. It's not a given that the successor will have the same talent or ideological ambition as Carlson. He tried to pill his viewers, which is a
I see.
Matrix reference there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just I have my questions about what he thought he was. You'll never know what he
wanted to turn normie conservatives into anti-elite right populists, firing them up with fury over critical race theory.
It's just
He
hard
was
to know
Chris
whether he
Rufo,
did
and Chris
or
Rufo,
just
of
thought-
course, loved him.
Yes.
Conservative activist Chris Rufo told the Washington Post,
Well,
to
he
a
was
large
worth
extent,
money to
Tucker
him.
frames the narrative for conservative politics.
Yeah. I mean, to the people for whom Tucker Carlson generated income, he was extremely important. And I was curious, though, whether Tucker Carlson was one of those people. Like, this generates income, I'm going to do it? Or did he think, is this the sort of thing he would do for free as a hobby?
Oh, I think this is the sort of thing he'd do for his hobby. He didn't need the money.
Yeah, although that never stopped anybody from doing things anyway just for money. It's an odd thing, money, but yeah, it's very hard to tell, and I don't want to wait around and analyze it either. I mean, like, if he's near a cliff, push him.
No, you have to go back to
care
some of
why.
the old stories, though. I don't have these at my fingertip, but you remember the one I read to you some weeks ago.
It was one of my
about
favorites. Read it again.
The evil Tucker Carlson's origin story, where he went to a CPAC and told them the truth, and they booed him, and he said to himself, "Never again."
Yeah, okay. That's
Right?
why
you
I'm
have
confused
to
about
you
this
have to
guy.
have decent policy. We have to be more like the left and learn how to do policy. They booed him, and it crushed him.
Well, so much for that.
And he said, "This is never going to happen to me again." It's like the stories of those politicians, like Nixon and others, who said, "They're never going to get to the right of me anymore. I'll never let that happen." And
Well,
so
that's why
he
I'm
became
confused
the
about
evil
this guy.
Tucker Carlson that we know today.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, it explains his origins. I just don't know what's going on in his head. It does, but as you keep pointing out, it's true. It doesn't matter. And, do we need him? Do we want to be happy about his being gone? Yeah. We want to prevent him from coming back? Absolutely. Is it for this reason or that reason? I don't know, but we do want this to happen, and we don't want him back, and he's dangerous, whatever his motivation is. And, I guess to the extent, suppose I discover the true motivation. There's no antidote for it, so never mind. I guess I shouldn't spend any more time on it. I just have my doubts about him.
I'm having my own laugh here. Okay, this is really sophomoric, and you can laugh at me and say this is really silly and childish, but I'm still chuckling here.
All right.
The next story in Vox News is called, "No, seriously, why did Fox News fire Tucker Carlson? Something doesn't add up."
That's odd, funny. Okay, what's the answer? What's
The thing is, it's
answer?
written by Peter Kafka. Kafka covers media and technology. It's a wonderful name. There's nothing wrong with it. But Kafka writing a story about the intricacies of the Fox News Tucker Carlson situation is something that just tickles my funny bone.
Okay. Is he turning into a cockroach? Is that
I
the
don't know.
Joke? I don't know.
It's the trial. I don't know. I'm asking because it's odd that more than 24 hours since the news broke, we're still looking for the real story behind the surprise departure of the most popular anchor on America's most powerful cable news network, which is a Kafka-esque network, to say the least.
The whole thing is Kafkaesque, and so is this why they hired him to do this story?
No, he's like a known thing. Okay. This is what he does, and I'm not making fun of his name. I just think it's highly appropriate that.
I mean, I'll take care of that.
It's a Kafka story. I'm asking because it's odd that more than 24 hours since the news broke, we're still looking for the real story behind the surprise departure of the most popular anchor on America's most powerful cable news network, or at least a believable story. And also because the recent Fox booted Carlson might tell us something about what happens next. And we don't know.
Yeah,
now,
I mean,
one theory holds that Carlson's emails and text messages to his coworkers, some of which surfaced in advance of the Dominion libel trial, were embarrassing or angered Fox News' managers.
They would.
But that's not something that they didn't know. A second theory argues that Carlson left because of a lawsuit filed by former Fox News producer Abby Grossberg, who started working on Carlson's show in 2022 and describes the production as a pre-Me Too frat house, the kind of place where the office was decorated with large pictures of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wearing a plunging swimsuit. Under that theory, Fox, which has paid out tens of millions for people like Bill O'Reilly and Roger Ailes, didn't want to rerun with Carson.
Sure, I think that's a contributing factor.
But, the idea that Carlson, who loved playing a cruel sexist rat guy on TV, would behave like a cruel sexist rat guy off screen can't have shocked anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they didn't know. So we're left with a shrug, or as former media columnist and current Semaphore co-founder Ben Smith put this morning, anybody got any better ideas?
No, and I don't know if you need any. I mean, to me, it seems highly believable that management, whether it's Murdoch himself or the group of them, just say, "Hey, I mean, we knew all these things about him. None of them are a surprise, but just now we also have lost $700 million over this guy. Enough. Forget it. Get lost. I can't take it with this guy anymore."
Right. Anyway, that's the roundup for today.
Okay.
Again, I think that because of the Father Coughlin style that Tucker Carlson adopted for whatever reason, whether he believed
Tucker
it or
Carlson.
not,
Yeah.
I think it's highly important that he's gone.
I agree.
And I don't think that at least short term, anything that he does will replace what he had. And I'm not even sure long term that'll happen.
That's fine.
Yes,
it's probably
somebody else
fine
will
with him
replace
too.
But as with the replacement by Hannity, not so great replacement.
Yeah. I mean, he's
That's my theory.
53 and he's worth several tens of millions of dollars. He could just retire. Now we'll find out whether he's I don't know whether his continuance will tell us whether he's a true believer, loves money, just loves the ego stroking that comes with it. No one can tell. Maybe it's a combination of all those things, just like the reasons for firing him. A complex figure. And, I don't know. Well, hopefully we don't have to hear from him anymore. Why not take it easy? I encourage him to do that.
Anyway, that's a story, and I'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Very good.
Maybe some other stuff will happen.
Right. I mean, the Proud Boys jury could finish up deliberations.
That'd be nice.
They'll want another lunch,
Or maybe
probably.
Trump
I
will
would
be
guess they go to
indicted by
Friday.
Jack Smith, or we do know Fannie Willis is not going to indict till the summer.
Yes, I know, right?
But
she
all
likes
stories
vacation
suggest
time.
she is going to indict, so we'll see.
Yes, right. So that's all we can do.
We'll see
Wait
who.
and see. Yes, and then right. So all the time
Could be
between
just
then and
Lindsey
now.
Graham and nobody else, but we'll see.
Oh, that would be wonderful. By the way, but okay, yeah. Everyone will now spend the time writing stories about what a strategic error it is to wait until July, and I don't really. See
I don't hear
why.
any music, but I'm going.
All right, well, it's time now. Here you go. There you go.
Oh, there
If
you go.
want to hear the music?
See, sound. My timing's getting better.
Yeah, right. The sound of music. Weren't we just talking about that the other day? All right. Well, at any rate, thank you very much, Greg. We'll see you again on Thursday, and that'll wrap up the week. I feel like we're running out of news all of a sudden.
More news will happen. Take
Okay.
care.
All right. Very good. See you then. And I have some that I'll go back to, and we'll go back and read. There's more extensive stories, the other half of stories that I only got to the top of, to share with you later. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. I hope we did that break right. I don't know. It freaked me out at the end there when Greg was saying that he thought the music was late. The timer goes off at the same time every day, and you're supposed to wait. The procedure is wait another 30 seconds then before beginning the music, and I think everything worked out just fine. Anyway, we're here now, and I don't know. Feels like a weird day. I got a really weird feeling about this. Let's see. I got a couple of stories to share and a couple of stories to double back on. But I have this one from the Bird site. I actually did stop by and check in on what was being shared with me of late. And let's see. There are a few things. One of which is why did this switch screens? One of which comes from a good Twitter friend and listener, Flamingo Girl, who has sent this on, saying that there is a Tennessee 3 situation. I guess I'll add the word situation. Tennessee 3 thing happening in Montana, except it's a Montana 1. Wherein the legislature is refusing to let its only transgender legislator speak, which is an interesting way of dealing with your objections to transgenderism. It's either why not come right out and do expulsion? I guess they couldn't think of a reason that they thought would stand up to scrutiny to go with expulsion. So instead they're saying, well, you can stay here, but you're not allowed to speak. And what the hell is the justification for that? Outside of, well, we don't like transgender people. But what an odd thing to do, just in general. What's going on? Who is this person? What do you need to know? Flamingo Girl asks the right question. I've been wondering, well, it's not a question, a statement. I've been wondering when this would become national news. I have seen mention of it, but there hasn't been the great national, the widespread national focus on it that there was when, well, I guess the expulsion moment focused everybody's minds. And then, of course, the weird difference, the weird expulsion for just so happened to be that the two black men get expelled and the white woman does not. That, helped put a finer point on it. But this is happening and we need to know about it. Maybe the big difference here is, well, it hasn't been mentioned on Kagro in the morning. I don't see how that's possible, but I'd love to think that that was true. And why don't we think of it now? Okay, who are we talking about? Let's see. Flamingo Girl points us to the tweet of Jack, is it Gallup? That's how it's spelled. A BBC News producer and journalist. Unless it's Gallup somehow, I don't know what to say. Anyway, but they're aware of this in the BBC, and here in the United States, we're still worried about, Tucker Carlson, I guess. Montana Representative, and does she say Zoe or Zooey? I don't know. It's spelled like Zooey, but I've seen that name used and then pronounced as Zoe, and a variant of the name. But Zoe Zephyr, which, sounds like maybe a name that would ordinarily set off my alarms of, hey, this is made up. But, all names are made up. But anyway, Montana, that's the name, and that's what she chooses to identify as. And so, how we are about recognizing that sort of thing. Montana Representative Zoe Zephyr has been silenced in her legislature after she told Republican lawmakers that they would have, quote, blood on their hands if they approved legislation banning gender-affirming care for transgender youth. Now, the quote that they selected made me wonder whether they were using the cover of, well, that's a threat to other legislators. I mean, because it had the word blood in it, but I think generally speaking, we're supposed to understand the phrase, well, you'll have blood on your hands, as meaning that, one, it'll be other people's blood, and two, you'll be at fault for having done it. Someone else will have shed the blood of this third person, and we will come to believe that it was your doing that blood was shed because of the rhetoric you used, as opposed to, we think you killed this person. But I don't know. I'm not certain whether that is what the excuse was. There's a video clip that goes along with it. I don't know how much more explanation there is, but really, maybe what we ought to be doing is, I feel like, well, I didn't prepare for it, but I feel like I want to look up the story and find some other sources so that we can, uncover what's the kernel of truth sitting in the middle of this that Republicans distorted in order to get to this point. Here was let's see if the New York Times can explain it to us. They gave a shot at it about 4 hours ago, so it's working in terms of becoming nationals. Look at the video that's come along with it. Here is there are some riot geared police entering the chamber of the Montana legislature, I guess, to clear the galleries of protesters. And Zoe Zephyr is on the floor holding up a fist with a microphone in protest and salute to the protesters. So interesting. Let's read the written side of it, because that's a lot better than me trying to describe the pictures to you. Jim Robbins and J.C. Fortin, is that the correct pronunciation? I hope so. Write this piece. Montana House to vote on discipline of transgender lawmaker. Republicans have refused to let Representative Zoe Zephyr speak until she apologizes for comments made during a House debate. Several of her supporters were arrested during a protest. So lots of different moving parts to all this. Refusing to let a representative speak until an apology is made is not out of, well, it's not, it is out of the ordinary. I mean, that's not what normally goes on, but it sounds like the equivalent of the situation we've run into in the House of Representatives from time to time, where words are, as they say, taken down. Somebody says something that is not in accordance with normal decorum. Happens all the time, but somebody who you can raise a majority against, whether it's a member of the majority or minority party. But if you can get a majority of the House to recognize the impropriety of those words, you give them the opportunity to retract them themselves, ask that they be stricken from the record, and make an apology. And if they don't, you can censure them in a certain way. You know, in addition to actually censoring them separately, you can vote to remove the words from the record as a majority if they won't withdraw them. And ordinarily, the punishment that goes along with it in the House, the usual standby rule, is that representative is barred from speaking any further that day. Though I guess you can extend the punishment further. You could treat it like a contempt of court type situation. We're not going to, they might remove the words from the record, but we're not going to consider the matter dropped until there's an apology. I guess, you know, the prerogative is on the legislative body that makes its own rules to decide on something like that. And so I guess that's what they're doing. That's the rough equivalent of it. Somewhere between having your words taken down in the House of Representatives and being in contempt of court. The punishment lasts until the situation is, in the mind of the weird people running this thing, remedied by an apology. So here's the story. Legislators in Montana are expected to vote Wednesday, that's today, on whether to censure or discipline the state's only transgender lawmaker after an escalating standoff over her ability to speak in the House of Representatives led to heated protests and arrests on Monday and the abrupt cancellation of Tuesday's session. So I guess what's going on here is, while waiting for the apology and keeping her from speaking on the floor, protesters supporting Zephyr showed up in the House gallery, as would normally be their right. And I guess what is not among their rights is, of course, to shout from the galleries and try to disrupt proceedings. And they were protesting, and they knew that that would break the rules, and it did break the rules. And then they cleared the gallery with police. Whether or not they really needed riot gear is open to question. No, it isn't. The answer is no, they didn't do that. They weren't going to have a fight on their hands. But okay. So that led to the clearing of the gallery. That, of course, would have also led to Zephyr protesting in support of them from the floor. I don't know whether, I guess this video of her speaking on the floor must be from Monday or earlier, before she was blocked from speaking. Anyway, the lawmaker, Representative Zoe Zephyr, shared a letter from the House's Republican leaders Tuesday night, providing her notice that a motion would be made to decide if she had violated House rules and, quote, whether to impose disciplinary consequences. The letter also said the session would be closed to the public, but available to watch online. They just didn't want, I guess, people in the galleries. I have been informed that during tomorrow's floor session, there will be a motion to either censure or expel me. All right, there's the possibility of expulsion in this too. Ms. Zephyr said on Twitter, I've also been told I'll get a chance to speak. So that's interesting, because the whole controversy is over keeping her from speaking. But okay. At least allow her a chance to speak in her defense during this disciplinary motion. The increasingly tense confrontation started on April 18th, so it's been a while, when Ms. Zephyr, a first-term Democrat representing Missoula, made an impassioned speech on the House floor telling colleagues that voting to ban transition care for transgender minors would leave, quote, blood on your hands. The normal theory behind all this usually is, well, transgender youth, when prevented from transitioning or seeking some sort of self-affirming care of some kind, very frequently become irreversibly depressed and resort to suicide or suicide attempts. That's the blood that would be on your hands. Like, why not let people who think that they belong or they need to transition to a different gender or to no gender or whatever transition it is that they choose to undertake, and that would make them feel better about themselves and relieve a lot of depressive angst for them. Why not let them do that? And, if your answer is, well, God told me to, or I just don't like it, or I don't know what to call you and that makes me uncomfortable. Whatever the reason, it's a bad one. And blocking them from doing that is absurd and ridiculous on a number of levels. But in addition, causes people to, become depressed and threaten or actually attempt and sometimes succeed in committing suicide. That's the blood on your hands. So I guess they probably decided to, well, I'll read on to see whether they just decided to purposefully misinterpret that. Conservative lawmakers condemned her for using hateful rhetoric. And the House Speaker, Matt Regier, I don't know, Regier, I don't know, said he would not allow her to speak again until she had apologized. You will have blood on your hands. And that's hateful rhetoric. Well, I mean, no, it isn't. But, when you have a majority, you can decide, you can deem it to be hateful rhetoric, which is wrong and unfortunate and a twisting of, the usual rules of debate, et cetera, for partisan reasons. So lots of reasons to think this is the wrong conclusion. The clash led to protests on the Capitol steps on Monday, and Ms. Zephyrs' supporters crowded the House gallery shouting, "Let her speak." Mr. Regier, I have no idea how he pronounces it, ordered the gallery cleared, and police officers moved in with batons and face shields, which was overdoing it and just made things worse. 7 people were arrested. "I am devoted to those who rise in defense of democracy," Ms. Zephyr said in a tweet after the arrests, while Republican leaders released a statement calling the action a riot by far-left agitators, which I guess is why they insisted the cops be in riot gear, so that would bolster their claims that there was a riot going on. This is a disturbing trend all by itself, by the way, Republicans resorting to insisting that every protest is a riot. If you're going to call our protest a riot, the one where we punched cops, gassed them, killed 1 or 2 of them, smeared feces on the wall, smashed the windows, threw the papers all over the place, threatened to hang the Speaker of the House, threatened to hang the Vice President of the United States, you're going to call that a riot? Well, then I guess everything's a riot. Well, no, that was a riot. You're wrong about that. And you can't undo it by pretending that every game of tiddlywinks is also a riot. In a brief news conference on Tuesday, before the House session was canceled, Mr. Roger over and out, blamed Ms. Zephyr for the standoff, of course, saying that she had violated House rules and castigated the news media for reporting that she had been silenced. But she had been, right? I mean, you did do that. "The only person who is silencing Representative Zephyr is Representative Zephyr," he said. Of course, that's, a bit childish to say, we're not going to let her speak until she apologizes. Well, I'm not going to apologize. Well, then you silenced yourself. Well, no, I didn't. I want to talk about other things. Well, you're not allowed. Well, then you're silencing me. Come on, guys. Ms. Zephyr called the Republicans' actions anti-democratic and remained defiant in an interview on Tuesday. "I'll do everything I can to make sure the Montanans who elected me have their voices heard," she said. "It's up to the Speaker if he wants to recognize me as a duly elected representative." Montana is one of several states where Republican lawmakers have sought this year to prohibit hormone treatments and surgical care for transgender minors, even though in most cases that's not actually what's happening with transgender minors. But, it's like saying, we're trying to stop the woke mind virus. It's not a real thing, doesn't exist, but they love the outrage of it. It's just a cover story. About 1.3 million U.S. adults and 300,000 children identify as transgender, and efforts to restrict what is known as gender-affirming care have thrust them into one of the nation's most pitched political battles. New York Times doing nothing to clear things up for us, at least in this paragraph. Let's see if it gets any better. Republican legislators have characterized transition care as harmful and experimental, saying that children and teenagers are not mature enough to make permanent decisions. But major medical organizations, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, support this care and say that bans pose serious mental health risks to young people, infringing not only on their rights, but also on the rights of doctors and parents. Very interesting, by the way, invoking the parents and the parents' rights in this one. But apparently this is one of those places where Republicans don't care about parents or parents' rights. They're wrong, so they should shut up, is the way they're apparently approaching this. I don't know why that happens. It's just gimmitarianism. But again, in this paragraph, no help again from the New York Times in pointing out that, as I understand this to be the case, Republicans say, well, we're against this transgender care because we want to prohibit hormone and surgical care for transgender minors. And the reality is that only in the rarest cases, and if any at all, are there any surgical procedures going on where minors are involved. And they don't point this out, and that helps the Republican cause, because if they just elide that, then you get to just further conflate these things and then say, well, you can't, they're making permanent decisions and da-da-da. Yeah, but again, it's not the children doing that. And I don't know. I really think that they could be doing more to clarify this, but maybe I have it wrong. Anyway, now would be a great time to mow the lawn. I just want to let everybody, outside KITM studios know that this would be a perfect time to do that. So if you're thinking that your lawn has been looking a little ragged, you might want to step outside and do that. Or just remind you later that you can do it. All right. Anyway, this year, 11 states have passed laws prohibiting such care for young people, even though they're not getting any of that care in any of those states. Previously, just 3 state legislatures had enacted full or partial bans. The barrage of state legislation is part of a long-term campaign by national conservative organizations that see transgender rights as an issue around which they can harness some voters' anger and raise money. That's about the clearest this whole issue has been made so far in this article. Few of those legislatures have had to debate those laws with a transgender lawmaker as a member. That may change if slowly, over the last few years, a growing number of LGBTQ people have been running for office and winning elections. The number of openly transgender and non-binary people elected to public office increased to at least 70 this year, from 25 in 2019, according to the LGBTQ Victory Fund, which supports those candidates. Danica Rome, we know her, a Virginia lawmaker who in 2018 became the first openly transgender state legislator in the country, said that the number of bills on transgender issues introduced in her state this year was unmatched by anything she had seen during her time in office. But she added that she is now serving her 3rd term and watching transgender candidates in other states win elections too. Ms. Zephyr, 34, said she ran for office on a campaign platform of affordable housing, health care, human rights, and I am certain that that includes transgender rights as well. But I like the framing. Well, human rights. What's wrong with that? Everyone loves human rights, right? And climate justice. No traffic issues, apparently, in Missoula, Montana, like likes the case for Danica Rome. But anyway, it is her clash with Republican lawmakers over transgender issues that has rapidly raised her profile. No surprise there when you intentionally silence a representative of any party, said Ms. Rome, the Virginia lawmaker, but especially someone who is speaking passionately on an issue that directly affects them and the community that they come from. What you inevitably end up doing, you elevate their profile. True, and it's happened here, and now it's time for us to do our part in elevating the profile as well. She pointed to the 2 Democrats who were expelled by their Republican colleagues in Tennessee for leading a gun control protest on the House floor. The lawmakers, Representatives Justin Jones and Justin J. Pearson, who are both black, have since been reinstated, but not by the legislature, but by their local representatives. But their expulsions jolted state politics and intensified debates over race and representation. I mean, I don't know. I thought that was actually an important point that they left out. I don't know, the editing out the words, but I mean, since been reinstated. It makes it sound to the uneducated reader, not uneducated, but the uninformed about this particular situation. Like, if you're coming to it late, it makes it sound like the Republicans in the state legislature, ended up thinking better of the expulsion and letting them back in. That's not what happened. Republicans in Montana have denied that they are attempting to silence Miss Zephyr. I don't see how or why, really, honestly. They are doing that. Characterizing her criticism of their support for a ban on transition care for minors as hateful rhetoric. That's pretty interesting. And that's, that's their smiling wry game, right? You're the ones who say that you don't like hateful rhetoric, libs. Well, watch this. We think your rhetoric about us is hateful, so we're going to use that. Yeah, but that's, it doesn't make any sense, your application of it. Yeah, it does. So, well, when you have the gavel, I guess you get to say, yeah, it does. But then we all get to point and laugh and say, you don't understand what you're doing. Well, anyway, so this was their excuse. Her support or her criticism of their support for a ban on transition care for minors is hateful rhetoric that could lead to, but I'm sure they meant lead to violence, because you said blood on your hands. Well, it's self-violence, I guess. She's saying people will commit suicide based on your blocking affirmative care. Oh, that's violence. Well, I guess suicide is violence in a way, but not in the traditional sense. And it, of course, intentionally confuses the subject. If you tell your Fox listening audience, well, she's encouraging violence, people say violence is bad. And so is suicide. But if you told them what exactly she was talking about, they might think differently. So therefore they don't. They say something different instead. In a letter last week that, by the way, misgendered Ms. Zephyr by using male pronouns, the Montana Freedom Caucus, a group of conservative lawmakers who copied their name and style from the Freedom Caucus in the House, of course, called for her to be censured. The Montana legislation that Ms. Zephyr objected to has majority support in both the House and the Senate. No surprise. It is expected to be signed into law by Governor Greg Gianforte, who is a bully and an a-hole to begin with. Also a Republican, in case you didn't A, know that, or B, come to understand it from my telling you who's a bully and an a-hole, who has called gender-affirming care a misleading term and compared it to Orwellian newspeak, which is totally different from saying that if someone says you'll have blood on your hands because someone will commit suicide is hateful rhetoric and encouraging violence. That's Orwellian newspeak. Lawmakers in Montana are also considering other legislation related to transgender issues, including a bill that would define sex as binary in state code, depending on whether a person produces eggs or sperm, and another would restrict when students can change their names and pronouns that they use in school. Ms. Zephyr was not recognized during debate on either bill. And just want to point out the reason I put the emphasis on it, I should have just stopped right there and told you. They're going to define sex as binary in state code, depending on whether a person produces eggs or sperm. I just want to let you know that, again, the craziness to which this drives Republicans. I'm conservative. I'm a Christian conservative, and I just think we should have good old-fashioned values, and I think, private things should remain private, and blah, blah, blah. When I was growing up, we didn't talk about such things. I want to change the state laws. I want to enshrine in state code definitions on everything, and it's all going to turn on whether or not there's sperm. I just want you to know about that. I'm giving them southern accents for some reason up there in Montana, and that's a terrible thing to do, and not only inaccurate and wrong, but disparaging of our good friends in the South, the geniuses who speak with that accent. Well, anyway, there's got to be some. But yeah, like for all their Christian conservatism, they're going to write laws about, it all turns on the sperm. It's a weird thing for you to be concentrating on. People are trying to, afford college, pay for their houses. We keep complaining, inflation, and it's making it more expensive to eat beef. It's what's for dinner, but it's too expensive now. And in Montana, that's a serious issue because there's lots of cattlemen there, and there's a million things occupying more important places in people's mind. But you're about to legislate about sperm all day long. I mean, think about how maybe not super Christian conservative that really is. And, it almost hardly ever comes up as an issue in church, as far as I understand it. I mean, I'm not there a lot, but we don't talk about it a great deal in temple. It's like, maybe you're in the wrong area. Maybe you're being distracted. If you're legislating about sperm all the time, you should think about something different. Anyway, yes, so thank you to Flamingo Girl for bringing that up. I guess it probably deserved an entire segment because it's a bit of an outrage and it's a bit weird that we haven't, taken a greater note of the fact that it's happening, and maybe just the fact that it's happening in Montana or there's only one person involved. But now it seems to be getting much more attention. The New York Times has given it attention, but more importantly, Kagro in the Morning has given it attention too. We really did need to spend some time talking about that. There's more, of course, and why don't we turn our attention to it when we come back from this break? That seems an excellent plan. Oh yes, and we wanted to catch up on a couple other crazy things too. Oh yeah, we should probably turn back to what was going on with Wendy Rogers out in Arizona too, because we only got about halfway through that article, and things got, if you can believe it, crazier than where they started. We'll be right back. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Okay, so yes, I mentioned to you that I wanted to get back. There are more issues surrounding the Wendy Rogers situation in Arizona, and the important one was put out there yesterday when I read about this. That once again, I'm reminded of this story by what happened in Montana, where again, this is Republicans apparently doing their damnedest to intentionally and like on a really facile, superficial, and childish level misunderstand or pretend to misunderstand the dynamics of what's happening, like about what is hateful rhetoric and why it's a problem, and just deciding that, well, everything having to do with blood, let's say, is hateful rhetoric. Although why, I don't really know. But at any rate, but Wendy Rogers, in fighting back, giving you a reminder of the background here, fighting back against a reporter who is investigating whether or not she, in fact, like the Tennessee Speaker of the House, lives in the district she claims to live in. To the extent there are rules, I don't know whether the rules in Arizona are the same or not as they are in Tennessee, but they do discuss this in this article at some point, so I thought I would get around to sharing that. But if she's not living in the district that she's claiming to represent, that could be a relatively serious issue, and I don't know what, if anything, they would do about it. But instead of actually saying, no, I really do live in the district I say, or admitting, all right, I live in a different district, but it's only temporary, or I'll change that so that I can be in compliance. Thank you for pointing it out. Instead, the reaction is, this person is investigating me. I don't know whether that also means they're trying to assassinate me or not, but let's say that they are, and get a restraining order against them as well. So no more reporting on me, Wendy Rogers, for you, reporter, what's the name here? Sanchez, and I've forgotten the first name. Cameron Sanchez. It's Camryn, in case you're interested. And I think in reading through this, well, let me see if there's any news about this person so that we can properly identify them. And I was like, Cameron, spelled that way, suggests female, but not entirely sure, not necessarily, but if I can take a stab at it by the way they present visually, if I'm allowed to do that, I'm going to say yes, Ms. Cameron Sanchez. No, doesn't offer pronouns in the profile as far as I can see, so I'm left to make a guess. I guess I'm therefore justified in guessing. I don't know whether the announcement of your pronouns forecloses that possibility or that it's left open otherwise to guess. I acknowledge that I haven't listed any, and I'm allowing you to guess. If you guess wrong, I'll let you know, and we'll offer her the same courtesy. Anyway, so as we mentioned, weird background here, right? She's trying to report on this stuff, and basically, how do you report on whether or not this state senator lives where she says she lives? And the answer is you do reporting. You go to her house and you knock on the door and you ask permission to ask the senator or someone else there about whether or not the senator lives there and whether or not that's their primary domicile, and do they know that you're supposed to live in the district, and do you maintain a residence there, et cetera, et cetera. You ask these questions. That's fine. That's normal. Oh, what was this person doing knocking on my door? They were knocking to see if you were there, and you would give them permission to speak with you. That's what people do when they knock on doors. Well, I didn't give them permission to knock on my door. This is my private property. And you get into that also very weird area where, well, what's the difference between what are your private property rights when it comes to normal, societally recognized modes of requesting engagement, ringing the doorbell, knocking on the door? It is private property. You have to walk up to private property and knock on the door. And a lot of times people are like, well, I put a no soliciting sign on my door. And while I understand that you would have a pretty good claim then against someone who then solicited you, don't make me tap the sign. It says no soliciting. But how, if you put it on your door, by the way, how do you know that there's a no soliciting sign on the door until you approach the door and read the sign? At which point it's too late. You didn't see the no soliciting sign is my declaration that I feel like I have the right to shoot you if you knock on the door or approach close enough to just read the no soliciting sign. Decided it applies to you, turn around and go home. I'm going to shoot you in the back because you're still on my property. There are such weird people. And Wendy Rogers is one of those kinds of weirdos that makes me think she might be a real danger to people in the neighborhood. Anyway, she's turned it around and decided that the reporter is the danger to people in the neighborhood. And where did she get the idea? It turns out that the Senate president in Arizona gave her the idea. It says right here, Senate president suggested obtaining order. Senate President Warren Peterson said in an interview that Sanchez can still access the state Senate as long as she doesn't approach Rogers at her desk. That was another of the upshots of all this. Not only can you not go to her house and ask her questions, but you can't approach her on the state Senate floor, which is, again, what reporters do all the time now that she's got a restraining order. And it was Peterson that suggested getting this broad restraining order. He defended Rogers for obtaining the injunction and noted that Criddle, the magistrate judge, he, as he puts it, is a disinterested third party and approved it, so it must be okay because she's totally disinterested. Except we don't know anything about Criddle and who she is and whether she really is disinterested. He's just saying that. She's supposed to be disinterested. She's a magistrate judge. But Matthew Kaczmarek is supposed to be a disinterested party too. He's a federal judge, and he's not a disinterested party. That's the problem. Sanchez previously made Rogers nervous by asking her questions when Rogers was at her desk. Well, too effing bad. That's part of the job. You're a state senator. I ask you questions. I'm a reporter. That makes you nervous because you're probably a guilty party and you are doing things that people will be angry about, and I'm going to report those things. That's actually on you. You either need to stop doing those things or seek therapy or just learn to deal with it. Made you nervous. What does that mean? Well, anyway, that's what she's claiming. Sanchez previously made Rogers nervous by asking her questions when Rogers was at her desk, and after the reporter visited the residences, Rogers, quote, felt like her boundaries had been crossed multiple times, Peterson said. He said that Rogers told him Sanchez had gone, quote, inside a home under construction. Whose home was it? I don't know. It doesn't say, but she went inside a home under construction. Don't you understand? I mean, I don't know exactly what that's about, but okay. I mean, a home under construction has no walls. People sometimes go in them. They shouldn't. It's still private property. I don't know what the threat is supposed to be here, but basically, if you're reporting on, say, a legislator having 2, 3, 4 homes, whether it's because we think they don't live in the district or we think, where did they get all the money to have 15 different houses under construction? I don't know. And how do we observe the kind of lavish appointments in this house? Well, if it has no walls, you go in it or you look in it. I don't know. Anyway, she was pretty upset about it, Peterson said of Rogers. When Rogers asked what she could do about Sanchez, the answer should have been nothing, but he said he told her one remedy was to obtain a restraining order. Now, what does Arizona law and the Arizona courts say about residency for lawmakers? Let's find out the answer to that question. The Arizona Constitution requires lawmakers to have lived in the state for at least 3 years. I don't think that's a problem. And in the county from which he, even though it's a she, is elected at least 1 year before his election to run for office. Once in office, another constitutional provision requires lawmakers to be a, quote, qualified elector in their legislative district. That is to say, a registered voter there. Tempe and Chandler are in Maricopa County districts, but Rogers lives in Legislative District 7 in Flagstaff, the northern Arizona city that Rogers listed on her nominating paperwork and campaign finance report as her legal residence. Okay, so she claims to live in Flagstaff, and yet Tempe and Chandler are where she actually maintains homes, right? I think I kind of have to double back and make sure that that's the case in reading through this, right? Sanchez was investigating properties in Tempe and Chandler that Rogers owned. And the question is, did she just own them and rent them out, own them and live there part-time, hardly ever, never, or does she really live in Flagstaff? That's the big question here. All right, so moving on to the rest of the section about the requirements. Still, court rulings above and beyond the black and white letter of the law and the Constitution. Court rulings have diluted the residency requirement over the years, making a lawmaker's legal residence a state of mind rather than a firm rule, according to newspaper reports from the late 1990s. After the August primary, now Senator Justine Wadsack, a Republican of Tucson, successfully beat a challenge to her legal residency when she claimed she was forced to move out of her Tucson family home in a Democratic-leaning district because of, ready for this one, attacks by Antifa. And where did she move to? A rented room in a Republican-leaning district where she won her election in November. Okay, sure. So in other words, she didn't really live in the district that she ran in. She couldn't win in the district where she lived. So she said, I'm actually living in a rented room in a Republican-leaning district, which is okay. I mean, you can live in a rented room, but the claim was that I would normally be living in a regular house, but I was run out of my house by attacks by Antifa, which, should pretty much be, it's a very quick clue to no, you weren't. You're lying. And if you really looked into it, you would find out that that's not the case. And what you're really doing is living in a district where you could never get elected because that's where your nice house is, and pretending you live in the rented room over in the Republican district where you can get elected. And that's just icing on the cake that you're being forced to do it by Antifa. Now, it's not a nefarious plan on my part to fraudulently be elected in a Republican district I don't live in. And why don't you live there, by the way? I don't know. You should be voting with your feet and moving there. They say that all the time. You love it or leave it. Well, if you don't like the Democratic district you're living in, you can leave. Why don't we flip the script on them? You're using hateful rhetoric. Well, you should love it or leave it. Oh, yeah? Well, you won't. Anyway, the article also states that Rogers collected $19,754 in payments for mileage and subsistence, that's a meal allowance, I guess, between March 31st of 2022 and January 6th, what an important date, but January 6th, 2023, $19,000 in mileage, in addition to her $24,000 yearly lawmaker's salary. So she doubled her income from the state for some reason. Lawmakers who live in Maricopa County receive considerably smaller payments. So is she really living in Maricopa County and traveling almost no distance whatsoever, I guess, because she's going to, is Maricopa County where the capital of Arizona is? But claiming to get mileage from Flagstaff when she's really only logging mileage from Tempe or Chandler. Is that what's happening? That's the accusation. Rogers likely could not have won election in Tempe or the Chandler district, which are Democratic leaning. So instead, she claims she's from Flagstaff, and as part of the cover story, claims mileage. That, I guess, is the theory here. Peterson downplayed the Capital Times as a story, saying, if you have 3 homes, you get to decide which one is a residence. And I guess that's actually the state of the law in Arizona. It just doesn't make any particular sense. That's what they meant when they said residency is a state of mind. So in other words, what they're saying is somebody has won cases in Arizona by saying, I have 3 houses, one in Tempe, one in Chandler, one in Flagstaff. I spend 364 days a year in either Tempe or Chandler, 1 day a year in Flagstaff, or for that matter, 0 days a year. But if you ask me, what do I feel like my home is? I say Flagstaff. And if the courts say that's all it takes, if that's what you feel is your home, and that's legally what we're going to require, I mean, that's a dumb rule, probably insupportable, and I would guess very likely something that they wouldn't say for a Democrat, for whatever reason, but we're willing to say it about Republicans or allow Republicans to claim it. I don't know how much there really is to do about it, but in the meantime, I guess you can also say whether or not you fear attacks from Antifa or a reporter makes you nervous. If that's, if you can say where you live is a state of mind, then I guess you can say the rest of it is a state of mind. After all, being in fear is, in fact, a state of mind. It's a little less difficult to come to understand that. But, wow, there you go. Wendy Rogers, paranoid as always, and now using it to her legal advantage and her political advantage because she doesn't have to answer questions from reporters so long as they, quote, make her nervous. So, interesting. I don't know whether that'll develop into anything more, but there you have it. I just thought I would fill in the rest of the story here. All right, let's see. Other things that we wanted to get back around to. Oh, yes, right. There was what Joan mentioned yesterday, Clarence Thomas's even earlier failure to recuse himself from cases that Harlan Crow was involved in. And what else have I got here? I have to go pop all the way through to it. Oh, yeah. All right. Well, we need a better segue than that in order to get around to that pocketed story. Okay. A few things I have to check on here to see what's what, because Twitter, as it continues to fall apart, Also makes it increasingly difficult to pocket tweets and see at a glance what they're about. Okay, let's see. There are other items for discussion that, let's see, what else can I include real quick? Oh, yeah, you know what I wanted to go back to? I got to go back, scroll back a few days. I thought this was kind of important to a story that has fallen out of the news lately, but I just thought was interesting commentary on it. But back to the intelligence leaker who brought all of the secrets that he stole from his Air National Guard role and leaked on Discord. You remember this guy, and I already have forgotten his name, but I'll remind myself by clicking through. Jack Tejera, of course, now arrested and going through the legal process, going through some things, as they might have said, in the was it Trump that did that? Anyway, but I have this Wired magazine piece from April 12th, and this will be the second time that we revisited something from as early as April 12th on today's program, just offering a slightly different perspective of what was going on there, and I guess good something to keep in mind going forward. So again, Wired magazine, it is Lily Hay Newman, the writer here in this piece. Leaked Pentagon documents may herald a new era of revelations. Good to keep in mind, something to look forward to with some trepidation, I am sure. The bizarre release of sensitive U.S. government materials soon after their creation signals a potential shift to near real-time unauthorized disclosures. And I have seen other suggestions that Discord as a platform is in fact full of such disclosures, and that Tejera's is by no means the only one going on. I don't know. I haven't read that article, and I suspect that it could be true. You know, just another one of those decentralized platforms that can't be monitored closely enough and isn't really monitored by human eyeballs the whole time. So that all sorts of violations of the rules, just as on other social media platforms, could be going on at all times, and we just wouldn't know about it. But let's read through this quickly and see if we can get the piece on record here. The United States government has been scrambling this week thanks to well, not this week, but back in April 12th it was, thanks to a leak of sensitive Pentagon documents that include an array of recent intelligence updates and Joint Chiefs of Staff briefings. Notably, the documents seem to be very recent, dating from as early as January to early March. The trove was first posted to Discord a few weeks ago before some of the documents got picked up more recently on Russian Telegram channels and then Twitter. Initial reporting about the situation, including by the New York Times, which broke the story, has focused on roughly 100 documents, but some reports, and it's linked here, indicate that even more secret documents may have been shared on Discord over the past few months. The documents are photographs of printed out presentation slides. Some of the papers have been folded and unfolded before being photographed, and some of the photos capture slivers of other objects that were on the desk with the papers. Researchers say the leak ranks high among other prominent recent revelations about clandestine U.S. government activity. A list that includes information from Edward Snowden about the NSA's bulk surveillance activity, details of the CIA's hacking capabilities in the Vault 7 revelations published by WikiLeaks, and NSA hacking tools revealed in the Shadow Brokers leak. But this latest leak has some specific characteristics reflective of the current moment. It is relatively small and contains fresh information rather than a large trove of months or years of old data. And while it is not yet clear who leaked the documents or what their motivation was, well, I mean, now we know who leaked the documents and some of what the motivation was, actual indications from Discord activity suggest that the leaker may have been trying to show off to their gaming friends and might even be a teenager or young adult. We now know the answer to that, and yes, that's all true. I am intrigued by the idea of a small pinpoint leak phenomenon, says Dan Meyer, a partner in the law firm Tully Rinckey, R-I-N-C-K-E-Y, Tully Rinckey, who works on federal employment and national security matters. Meyer was formerly a federal investigator and whistleblowing expert within the U.S. government. The use of strategic leaks has been a tactic of top officials for a very long time, Meyer says. But now the technology issue is very real with phones and the ability to move these documents in ways the government didn't anticipate. I mean, they did anticipate it. You're supposed to turn in your phone and not have it with you in these secure facilities. They're just not, enforcing that rule. But surely, people who are intent on spying probably have a lot more access to a lot more documents and can move them much more quickly than ever before. The latest leaked documents revealed details about, of course, the war in Ukraine, including information about the Ukrainian Army's air defenses and plans for a future counteroffensive against Russia. Notably, the trove also reveals details about Russia's war effort and exposes the degree to which the United States intelligence community had penetrated Russia's military and intelligence services. Not good to tell them about. As with any leak of state secrets, the most impactful revelations long-term generally relate to methods and access rather than specific information. That means Russian intelligence, for example, will likely make changes to its operations in response to revelations to evade American operators. The leak also includes indications that the U.S. has been spying on allies like South Korean and Israeli officials, a move that is not necessarily surprising but diplomatically embarrassing. By the way, not mentioned here is that Russia may, for example, in addition to make changes in its operations to avoid American operators, may also kill them, which is also not great. We're still investigating how this happened, as well as the scope of the issues. Chris Meagher, the U.S. Assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs, told reporters on Tuesday, back in the week of the 12th, I guess. But let's see. There have been steps to take a closer look at how this type of information is distributed and to whom. We are also still trying to assess what might be out there. Analysts emphasize that the scale of the leak may be much larger than what has emerged publicly so far, and that the situation reflects concerning lapses in the Pentagon's systems for handling secrets. It seems like the Defense Department thought they had sufficient controls in place to detect would-be leakers after incidents like Snowden, says Jake Williams, a former NSA hacker and an analyst with IANS Research. Don't know what that stands for, but it's a cybersecurity consultancy firm. But obviously, whoever is doing this got around that or learned from past techniques and mistakes. Did they? They got arrested. As real-time accounts of everything from wars to natural disasters play out on social media and other digital communication platforms, it makes sense that leaking has increasingly become targeted and agile as well. So-called hack and leak operations have demonstrated this in recent years with, for example, state-backed attackers leaking excerpts of government officials' digital communications or strategy documents from political campaigns. Hacktivists have also increasingly used precision leaks around the world. Ukrainian advocates have, for example, repeatedly doxed Russian military officials and intelligence agents. And they've leaked stolen data from Russian government agencies and private companies since the Kremlin's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. For now, as the U.S. government aggressively investigates the latest Pentagon leaker and their motives, Meyer says his advice for U.S. federal employees, contractors, or anyone with a U.S. security clearance is to mind their business. That's it. This is really all this is going to be. Just because you have the need to know doesn't mean that you have the need to go look at it, he says. That person should not access these documents anywhere on the web. This stuff has now been identified and classified, and even if it's well-intentioned, if you view classified information in a non-SCIF environment, you've committed a technical infraction. It's a mess. Don't do it, especially, I guess, even if you are formerly President of the United States, I would remind certain people. But anyway, I guess the headline was the real winner on that one, that this may herald a new era of fast-moving pinpoint leaks. And that, I guess previously it was such a difficult and dangerous undertaking to obtain documents and move them around. You either had to physically pass them to somebody or something like that, whereas now you can do it all electronically and do it at a moment's notice. I guess you're reminded that of the adage about political assassinations, I guess, is really what people were talking about. Anybody can kill anybody. You just have to be willing to, sacrifice your own life in order to do it. I mean, you can always take a shot at a president, but you'll likely pay for it, possibly with your life. And I suppose if you are either foolhardy enough or just naive enough to think that you'll get away with it, yeah. I mean, it seems like anybody with low-level military rank, but, if by necessity of the job, you have the security clearance to get into the computer systems where these documents are available to you, you can photograph them and or send them around on the internet. And before anybody is able to stop you, it's too late. The leak is out. Now they'll catch up with you and figure out who did it and punish you and bring it all down on you like a ton of bricks. If you're either willing to do that or so naive that you think that they'll never find you or what they won't really care about me, or I'm just 21 and I'm kind of dumb and I don't understand exactly what I'm doing, well, that doesn't prevent them from coming down on you like a ton of bricks. But the information is out there. It's now too late. So you could either do it as a matter of, ideologically, I want this to happen, and yes, they'll catch me, but it'll be too late. They won't be able to stop me. Information just wants to be free, man. Or I didn't know that this was a bad thing, or I just thought they would never catch me because I never put my name on anything except, I mixed in a selfie of myself in the middle of my disclosure, and that gave it away. Or I told people who I was, or I'm active, I'm leaving footprints behind electronically when I'm having these discussions. But yeah, still, there'll be more and more of this, I guess, as time goes on. That's really what I think I wanted to take away from the Wired piece. But like a lot of things, you read through to the end and you realize somebody got paid to produce 1,000 words on this, but didn't really have any particular insight. Oh well, sorry.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Okay, apologies too to Lily Hay Newman, who may actually know lots about what she's talking about. But, all right. Well, at any rate, it's time to hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And I guess what? He knows what he's talking about. He knows what stories are important. He's going to make some careful selections ahead of time so that he knows what he's doing and presents as such. Stay tuned. You'll see.